What's up, Kyle? Beard's looking great.
Thanks, man. Yours is getting there too.
I got it. I'm less than. I understand. And in the beard department, I got you. It's hard to compete. I feel like you strain hard and it just pops out further.
Yeah, as I say, it's kind of like a chia pet, man. You just get it, just throw a little bit of water on it, and just puffs out. So
Just keeps going.
yeah,
It's good stuff. It's really, now that we've started getting you on more video and stuff out on LinkedIn, I'd have to ask Josh about the analytics, but how many of the comments recognize and praise your beard? It may not be a majority, but it's definitely a plurality.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah. What's going on, man? How's the week been?
Good. It's been another busy week, but a lot of good stuff going on. A lot of client activity, and I think recently you just had a cab event, right?
Yeah. I knocked that out a little bit earlier today, and it's interesting. We ended up on a topic, obviously pretty wide ranging stuff, but one of the topics that a lot of like CIOs are dealing with is one that we also have been in some version of, but it's surprise, it's 2024 and it's about AI, but specifically
Yep.
it's like we didn't go into like really the technical side of it as much. It was more like the end users and policy creation around it and training and that sort of stuff. And it's something that even as I look at internally for us at Resourcive, over the next year or 2 years. I mean, really, if it's 2 years, it's too long. But really, over the next year, like, how do I have a very, very AI literate team? From
Yep.
like, what are ideal use cases? How do you have some basics of prompt engineering? Just so that if you are using it, like your inputs, you can efficiently use it and have effective outputs. But most importantly, like what are the considerations around, what data you're feeding into it, where can that data go, and essentially call it cyber and privacy considerations, basically. But it's
Yeah, I mean,
something.
even just company or corporate IP, right? So there's a lot that goes into that. Not just, I think, one of the things that people think about with AI is like, oh, what tool am I building with AI? Obviously that's one. The other is, we probably, whether it's through your Microsoft suite, whether it's through your, contact center, or some of the different platforms that are out there, like you probably have access to an AI product already, or a feature, an AI feature within an existing product. So how do you leverage that to maximum potential and then train up your users? And like what you're talking about is, prompt engineering, or plugging it into existing data sets to model off of. And then I think one of the other pieces is you're talking about compliance, or pushing or accessing the public systems that are out there. Like, do you really want your employees
Yeah.
taking corporate data and then going out to Bard, or I think it's called Gemini now, or Chat GPT, and just dumping corporate data in there to get an answer?
Well, the answer to that is no, unequivocally.
Yeah, unequivocally. But is it happening, right? Like, is it happening? How do you get your arms around it? How do you control that? Because if they're asking you about it, for everyone that's asking you about it, there's probably 5 that are already doing it and they just don't know about it. So tell me more about how you guys walk through that conversation.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was around, call it policy creation and the kind of end user training and stuff. I mean, we discussed a lot of things, so we didn't deep dive there. But I think, one of the things that I see emerging is almost, similar to like cyber concerns around phishing, right? Like one of the primary ways to attempt that is actually end user training, right? So companies like KnowBe4 or others like that. Like I think, and I do know that there's startups in this space, but focus just on creating an AI literate workforce, right? Like
Yeah.
educating them, whether it's through, pre-recorded type things, or, you're going to have cultural elements here as well. Like, what are the best practices and training of, a workforce to be AI literate? I think all that's like still TBD in some ways. Like, I don't know that I don't personally, at least, know of any companies who have like really, stepped forward and said, "Hey, we have done a wonderful job of creating an AI literate workforce."
Yeah.
Only company I know of that like has even said something like this is Rackspace has come out and said, we, over the next year, over the next 12 months, we have a goal of having 100% AI literate workforce, and we have essentially a queryable knowledge base, like a certification path with training and that sort of stuff. And there's different certification levels based on roles in the company, from just like, yes, I understand what it is, to people who are actually specialists and can go in and find, use cases. So I think it's going to run the gamut, but it is, in the same way, the Microsoft tool set, is largely ubiquitous in most companies now. And you need to be proficient with it. A few years from now, like, you're going to need to be proficient in this space, but it's not only about just how to use the tools. It is also about the cyber and data privacy concerns. And I think that that's a big aspect that a lot of the CIOs I talk to, that's their primary concern right now is,
Yeah.
hey, this is the Wild West, and I need to make sure that we've got some rails around it.
Yeah, that presents potentially an interesting dynamic of, in some ways, you have a corporation or an organization that's having to bring end users up to speed on a particular technology, and this one you may end up in kind of both ends of that spectrum, where you may have end users that are actually kind of already outpacing what the company's been able to set a policy around, right? Like they're using it in their personal life, or they're kind of a younger generation coming up using these tools before the company's been able to like really establish the practice or how they're going to govern it. So yeah, I can see that's I understand why they're all talking about it, right? It's because it is a concern.
Yeah, one made a joke to the effect of like, I feel like my job's become to be like an AI police, and we were also talking about it on other domains, right? I mean, we were talking about it on third party diligence with AI vendors, and like how there's just like some of these AI vendors, there's not a lot to them, right? Like there's not a whole lot to go diligence, and then you dig in and like they're not taking on legal liability. Like they want your data so that they can train on it. Like,
Yep.
a lot of it's a little bit of the Wild West, and so that's why they're spending a lot of time talking about it. But I know you've had some discussions over the last week that are coming from a little bit different angle. They're more around like essentially data structure and data. Basically, I almost think about it like AI readiness, right? Like how do you even prepare your data to be utilized by AI? What do those look like?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a number of clients come to us, and the way they frame it is, a data strategy conversation. Um, and so that's kind of a broad term, but really, what data are we capturing? Why are we capturing it? Who's capturing it? Where is it stored? Like all of those kinds of pieces, everything from the technical aspect to the people aspect, the governance of it, and then really, the why behind that is always like the business side, right? And usually that's kind of where we start is, what kind of things are you trying to answer for the business? What types of, whether it's reporting on metrics, or whether it's some type of business intelligence that helps you drive decision making, or one of those things, and then almost backwards engineer from there to say like, okay, these are the types of things that I want to be able to answer, or these are the things that the business wants to be able to see and make decisions based off of. And then start thinking about like, okay, well, what kind of data do I need in order to answer that question? And then I think of, okay, well, where and how am I going to gather that? How do I gather it? Where do I gather it? Where do I store it? How do I form it? And those conversations. And a lot of that drives a lot of call it data best practices, which then answer or get you ready for those AI or machine learning conversations, right? I think one of the things that I see is, everybody's kind of rushing into this AI conversation when really it's like, hey, well, hold up, like, have we learned to, are we learning to walk? Are we learning to jog before we learn to run? Is our data in a place that even allows for AI or machine learning to be effective, right? I don't see AI as a shortcut or a workaround to best practices and data, right? Versus where I see it is it's gasoline on a fire. If you have a good fire, if you've got good foundations, then you can, it's this force multiplier, this enhancement that you can do. But it's not necessarily like, oh, I haven't done the basics in data management or data strategy. I'm just going to like run over here, with this buzzword called AI and somehow circumvent it. Like, I don't see that working. I think it's always going back to like, hey, brilliance at the basics, make sure you've got a great, data strategy. And then you'll get to the point where like, okay, you have all of this structured in a way that AI is the next, logical evolution of what you can do with your data and for your business.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like people have to be working, a couple of different work streams in concert, because I agree with you at scale on overlaying it in unique ways to your business, right? But there's certainly like point use cases where you probably don't need your data strategy to be 100%, where it's going to be in the future. But you could start introducing AI. And I feel like finding that right balance is where a lot of people are at right now, is like, okay, where are their
Yep.
discrete use cases? I got it. I've got to work on all that stuff too, but where are there discrete use cases where I can start introducing this?
Well, I think that goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. Like when I'm talking about that data strategy and then getting to AI, that's almost like the in-house thing that we're talking about, right? Is what are you building is a, whether it's a feature or a tool within your own product set. You don't necessarily need all of that worked out to go introduce, the feature that's a part of an application that you're already consuming, right? Like you could probably do that in concert. You could probably do that ahead of time, and then also figure out, the stuff that's in-house.
Yeah. Interesting times indeed. It's good stuff. I mean, it's been a lot of great conversations. I'm excited to start seeing some of the outputs of them, and where some of this is used in not just novel ways, but ways that really drive business forward. So, it's exciting, and I mean, certainly, it's going to be the talk of the year. It will probably, apologies to the audience, it will probably not be the last time we discuss some AI on this
Yeah,
podcast. So. But cool. Thanks for sharing on the data strategy stuff. I know that's been a lot of your thinking over the last, couple months even, and a lot of conversations more recently with clients. So great stuff.
appreciate it.
And that's a wrap.